All right, this is the follow up, and we are following up today on a number of live videos I did on Georgia Space Chat in 2020 last year. The first one being The Silenced Majority about Native American artists that are no longer with us, and the second one being Silent No More, the Rumble, Hoop, and Holler, which deals with contemporary Native American artists and how they influence our collective consciousness and our collective aesthetic. My guest today on the follow up is no other but the mighty, mighty Snow Owl. Snow Owl, thank you so much for making yourself available and welcome to the follow up.
Oh, thank you so much for that.
Oh,
Wonderful welcome.
you're very welcome. My phone, of course, started ringing right when we started talking, but I can cut that out or not.
It's fun.
Anyway,
Keep
listen,
it real.
yeah, exactly. So here we are. Just to give you a little bit of background, and to whoever is watching and to whoever is listening, Snow Owl is a fantastic bass player who has been associated with the music of Hans Zimmer, the great movie composer, who has won very prestigious awards in bass playing competitions and who has several albums to his name. He is also originally from Colombia, and I will let Snow Owl talk about all of that, but he has taken on the name Snow Owl in reference to his Native American roots and his personality, his being. I thought that it would be really fantastic to hear from him and his perspective on Native American culture, on the influence of Native American culture, especially since number one, he's a bass player, and I'm into bass players, and number two, because here is a contemporary artist who has taken on this challenge of representing particular people. So, Snow, let me open up the floor to you. Um, what made you decide on Snow Owl? What was the process? If there was a process,
Mhm.
tell us a little bit of your story.
Just once again, a big thank you to you and everybody who is watching. It's greatly appreciated, and I also welcome all of you into um, my my perspectives of what I've experienced through the Great Spirit in life.
Mm-hmm.
And the name Snow Owl is actually my birth name. That was the name that was given to me at birth,
Mm-hmm.
uh, being from the Arawaco Nation.
Mm-hmm.
And the name Juan Garcia Herreros is a legal name for the Colombian government, let's say.
Right. Right.
But before governments existed, before anything of that happened, um, we have this beautiful belief that there is a spirit animal that helps you in the journey crossing over from the spiritual world into the physical realm.
Right.
And some people refer it as totems.
Right.
Uh, and when you're born, it's very hard to know. Of course, there's the elders decide or they see very quickly. They
Mm.
have they're very insightful, sensitive souls, and they see the
Right.
characteristics right away, which is very beautiful. And there was a time where I thought, okay, I was in high school. I was already studying music like a maniac, obsessed. But I knew that I'd always wanted to be a musician.
Right.
There was no other option for me. But the part that was Snow Owl, to take it on as an artistic name, that's something that I didn't like take seriously until a certain event that happened to me,
Mm-hmm.
which was I was visiting the one of the nations in Pensacola, Florida. I was in Florida at that time.
Right.
One of my friends was half Cherokee, and he was visiting the reserve, and I was not allowed to enter the grounds because I'm not part of that nation. So I
Mm-hmm.
was waiting, in his car for his visit, and he was gone for like 10 minutes or so, and then he came back to the car, and he said to me, "One of our elders would like to meet you."
Mm.
Um, and I said, "Why me?" And he said, "Well, he would like to meet the Snow Owl."
Mm.
And
Check that out.
the crazy thing was, I had never told my friend that that was my birth name, and it was such a impacting, life changing moment And I got out of my car literally with my with the knees shaking.
Mm.
And I went up to the elder, and I walked in, and as the elder saw me, I'll never forget this the grin in his eyes, the smile in his eyes as he saw me, and how he blessed me. And he said to me that he had only seen 3 owls in his life, and I was the third. And
Incredible.
then yeah, I get very, it's very emotional for me when
Oh
I tell
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. No, I can totally relate. I can totally
And
relate.
he said to me as a goodbye, he said, "Never deny your feathers."
Mm.
And that was it.
Right.
That was the stamp. And from that moment on, I said the world will have to see me as Snow Owl, because I will not deny my feathers
Oh yeah.
or
Oh
my
yeah, yeah, yeah.
roots.
How
And
important is that?
also,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's a long story, but that's the clearest way that I can tell it.
No, this is and thanks so much for sharing that. That means the world. You know, that's a big thing. I mean, I do I don't want to bring this to me because we're talking about you. Nevertheless,
Mm-hmm.
I can sympathize. You know, I carry the bear on one arm,
Oh,
I carry the killer whale on the other arm for that
oh,
particular reason. You know, those are my spirit animals, right?
yeah,
There is the god of the chest, the god of change on this
mm-hmm.
shoulder. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there is another one right here from
Mm-hmm.
my teacher. You know, so I do see how important this is, and I want to acknowledge that because that's a very as you said, life changing experience to have, and it takes an incredible amount of courage to also accept that. It's not
Yeah.
so. I want to acknowledge your courage in accepting that as well. That means a
Thank
lot.
you.
Um,
Thank you.
so let me just basically fast forward a little bit. So now Snow Owl is this bass player. Snow Owl plays a six-string contrabass guitar. Is very, very accomplished on the instrument. If whoever is listening, whoever is watching, please go check him out. I do also always link to my guests' social media pages, websites, whatever. But check him out. My question is, how do you take that influence and sort of translate it into today? Because your take on the native culture is uniquely yours, and it translates beautifully into a product that people can understand, right? So I want to know what if you can share, even because I understand it's a big subject, but
Mm-hmm. Sure.
whatever you can share from your process of taking that influence and sort of translating it into today.
I think that the responsibility of being blessed with such a background
Mm.
um, is one that I, with honor, accept.
Mm.
I gladly accept the ability to, through my successes, to be able to make people aware of uh, of the indigenous nations.
Right.
I mean, the goal for me was never, let's be a musician and make money.
Right.
That has never been my goal in life. Uh, the goal, the one meaning of all of this has always been to maintain the integrity of the spiritual path.
Right. Right.
And in order to do that, this selflessness um, of who you are, is so important when you are being the medium of communicating
Mm.
messages from the Great Spirit.
Right.
So it's not even you anymore. It's your abilities. It's the energy, the people that are there
Mm.
sharing that moment with you, and they will bring that moment further.
Right.
And I remember a beautiful conversation with one of my elders where he said to me once, I'll never forget that. He said, the Christians, the Jews, they have such amazing publicists. They have amazing press secretaries. They're so good at everybody knowing their message. It's so innocent ways. It's so beautiful.
It's true,
And
yeah.
he asked me, he said, would you would you help tell about us? He never
Right.
forced me. He just
Right.
said, would you help tell the world about it?
Right.
And one of the hardest things, and I think bravest things I ever had to do, was when we were doing the Blue Road album and we were actually touring with the Blue Road. I decided to do the three spirit paths.
Right.
And one path is blue, red, and yellow.
Right.
And there's a mask, which is the face of the universe.
Right.
That when I wear this mask on stage, I'm not allowed to speak to the audience.
Check that out.
Now imagine I adore speaking with the audience, especially and telling stories, and I love that moment in concerts when I could speak with my audience.
Right.
And then before each concert, when I put on the mask, we had to make an announcement that I'm not able to speak.
Oh, wow.
Because of its sacred
significance.
And significance. And I will never forget, in certain countries, always after the concerts or even during the concerts, there would be certain people. The meaning of that mask when I wear it is there will be a personal message for you when you look at me. And it was so many people would just start having crying attacks. They would look at me, or even in the meet and greets after the concerts, they'd come to sign the CD or make a photo. They would approach me, and immediately there was this respect. Immediately there was this moment of, oh, this is not normal.
Right.
What we're experiencing right now. And some women would just look at me in the eyes and would just start weeping. Who knows what message they received?
Right. Clearly it triggered something.
It triggered something inside of them. But it wasn't me.
Right.
It wasn't. It's our fathers. It's our traditions. It's our nations. It's the power of, let's turn off these phones for a moment. Let's disconnect for a moment and let's connect within.
Right.
And therefore, it's very easy to take the teachings or take the magic of it and just spread it. Spread it, because it's not harmful. It's helpful.
Right. No, I get it. Yeah.
In a world that is in a world that is under the illusion that it's connected.
Right. Whereas, drifting further apart as people.
Yes.
As we're speaking. So that's very true. That is very true. It reminded me, what you just said about the sharing and the communicating reminded me of I listened to a fantastic interview with, I believe, Guy Bratt, the British bass player who recorded with Robbie Robertson, right? And he said that when they were working on, I believe it was Robbie's first solo album, the one that Daniel Lanois produced, which was self-titled, Robbie Robertson, right?
Yes.
They had a moment where, and Robbie, for those who don't know, Robbie Robertson is Native American, right? He's from Canada originally, but he is Native American. And they had a moment when recording that album where every day, 5 p.m., they would have story hour with Robbie, right? And he would come down, he would be writing something in his room or wherever he was writing, he would come join the rest of the band and start talking and start explaining these stories, right? That eventually became, the background or the basis for all of the songs on the album. I thought that was such a powerful moment that Guy Bratt shared there, because it really, and it reminded, right now what you just said reminded me, the communication with the elders, all of that reminded me of how this culture, this Native American culture, very much like African culture, bearing in mind that Africa is a big place, okay, so there's lots of cultures, but a lot of that is oral. A lot of that is not, in comparison to European culture, is not necessarily written down. It's definitely not written down in European languages. So, that I think is something that an audience that is not familiar with these aspects kind of has to wrap their minds around. Like, the written word, as important as it is, in terms of communicating and whatnot and keeping records, has its importance, has its place in history, but the oral tradition, right? The tradition of storytelling and all of that, that is very much alive um, uh, in the Native American culture, right?
Yeah.
Is is the basis for almost everything, right?
Yes.
And it seems to me that you have made you have found a way to translate that particular storytelling into your music. Um, you know what you just said in terms of I want you to talk about your albums a little more because I thought that was fantastic. Um, to have such strong themes with these albums. Why don't you explain those a little more?
Mhm. Well, as I mentioned, the Blue Road, which is the spiritual path.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in each album um, that we're focusing on right now. Right now, we're focusing on the Red Road.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, on the Blue Road, I made sure that only people who were involved in tribe mentality were
Mm-hmm.
involved,
Check that out.
and that and in the storytelling. And one particular person who enriched my life tremendously was Mamadou Jabate
Okay.
from the Griot tribes from Burkina Faso.
Wow.
And I had the great honor of working with him many years, and I was in his country and received the blessing of the of of indigenous name from the Griot tribe, which was Sajuma.
Mm-hmm.
And the first song in the album is Neto Goye Sajuma, which is African. It's actually a Bambara, which is saying "My name is Snow Owl" in Bambara.
Awesome. This is
And
so great.
and I had to I had this they had this incredible chants, and they had these incredible African drums. Which what is the point of what I'm saying, or the whole root of what I'm saying?
Mm.
In Colombia, and well, maybe in the Afro Caribbean, there was always this, this talk and legend of how Africa arrived and it got mixed with the indigenous people, and there you have all of a sudden your rumbas, your guidos, you have all these things
Right.
that came out of it. And I was always, I don't know, such a purist about the traditions that I said I want to go to Africa one day
Right.
and experience it without the Latin influence,
Check
without
that
the
out.
indigenous influence. I want
Right.
to. I spent many years learning their way of, and I have to say this, talking,
Mm. Wow.
because the balafon and goni and these instruments, which are all in the Blue Road, they're language instruments. So Mamadou would go to his balcony and play a melody, and the neighbor would know that it's time to bring the milk.
Mm.
You see, and you would hear at night different balafons giving news to each other of what happened during the day.
Yeah.
And these are things that you realize, what am I saying on my instrument?
Yeah.
What am I saying anything at all? Because
Yeah.
when I would play with them,
Mm.
and there's those moments where they would look at you and they don't know what you're saying.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so it didn't matter what technique you had. It didn't matter what scales or how fast your solo was. No, if they didn't understand what you were saying in their pentatonic language,
Right.
then you were a crazy person. You
That's
see,
crazy. That's incredible.
and
Incredible.
that those lessons is I mean, everything that is in the Blue Road album. This is all about spiritual language.
Mm.
It's all about spiritual language and speaking. And there we had the great idea of taking one of the Bach movements and saying, well, what would have happened if Bach would have been born as an indigenous person in Colombia? What would that song would have sounded like? And that's what we did this Bach to the Future piece that it became so popular.
Yeah.
And and there's also,
Brilliant idea. Brilliant idea.
oh,
Really.
thank
Yeah.
you. And we had to ask for permission if we could use this sacred son corrido rhythm from the Mapele in Colombia,
Mm.
and put it in a context with and sort of phrase the Bach lines to fit inside of that rhythm. That was an amazing challenge, but it worked out incredible.
Right.
But then we also had a moment in the album where I recorded. I went here in Austria, in my village. There's a kindergarten,
Mm-hmm.
and when you take a walk, you hear all these kids. I mean, that for me is the purest, most beautiful sound on earth, is children laughing, playing with each other.
Mm. Yeah.
They're all playing in the playground. So I recorded them. I recorded the children, and then we played in the studio to the sound of them on the playground, and we, with our instruments, tried to be as playful as them.
Oh wow.
And
That's
that's another song on the album, which is called Water Giggles.
mm. Fantastic, fantastic, and what a fantastic representation of transference of information. You know, in an oral way and not in a written way. You know, it's just again like
Sure.
this the importance of cultures of how we learn about information, how we get information in. You
Yes,
know, is there's not only one way. I guess is you know could be the theme of this, but
exactly.
and you know, simply because one way has perhaps been stronger than the other or been more prominent does not make the other way any less, you know. And certainly, like
Yes,
as you said, like with the griot culture, with the griot musicians, if you weren't talking their language, so to speak, they would not they are not, as much as they would like to, they would not be able to understand you, so you would
yes.
need to learn their language. That makes that's such a powerful statement right there. That's incredible. So perhaps lastly, let me you know fast forward again to you know your association with Hans Zimmer,
Mm.
with you know playing big arenas, playing big concert venues, you know, and taking all this culture, all this background with you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be interesting for the audience to hear how are you taking all of this with you? Like
Mm-hmm.
how is it possible? How do you work all of this out? Because at times it can be intimidating, and I you know I also want to acknowledge that like there's a lot of history that you're carrying with you. So
Yes.
how do you work all of that out, and you know hopefully stay in the moment? What is your process what that is concerned?
Hans Zimmer is absolutely one of the brightest musical minds that I have ever experienced.
Mm,
Um, he's a beautiful soul, beautiful person, and who has accepted, welcomed, and um, even pushed that I be who I am,
mm,
and that element that I can bring to the music. He has the clear vision. He has always incredible ideas. His mindset for production and also for capturing the sensitivity of what the music should be in the moment.
mm,
He's a master. He's a
yeah.
master of that. And being I was selected by to be one of the soloists
Mm,
for the world of Hans Zimmer, of course, and which then evolved into me as well, recording soundtracks for him
right.
as well. Um, and there was a moment every night. Each soloist, there's 9 soloists in that particular project, which I don't even know how many millions of people we played in front of. That was
Mm,
unbelievable.
mm,
But there was each soloist was at the beginning of the tour. Each soloist was featured, and there was no electric bass solo feature at all
right. Right.
in there. Even though the role, just to play electric bass with that many cellos and acoustic basses on stage, you
It's a
got to know
lot.
what you're doing.
Oh
You
yeah.
have to know. So, um, but there was one spot which became very special, and it was before we would do Gladiator.
Mm,
That was the one moment where I thought, and I asked the production and I asked everybody, and I said, "Would you let me do a bass solo introduction, every night
mm,
before we perform Gladiator?" And because that was the moment. Gladiator is in many ways such a tribal theme,
mm. It
you
is.
know,
Yeah.
such an
Yeah.
ancient theme of the tribes of Rome and the tribes in the Mediterranean and all of the things that happen there. And it's such a story about spiritual faith
Yeah. That's true.
and about reuniting in the ether when you leave the body.
Yeah.
So that was the one of the strongest things that I could identify with, and the importance of fighting for what you believe in.
Mm,
Right? And every night, um, I never performed the same bass solo. Every night was different.
Right.
Even if you watch on YouTube, you'll see every night is a different
Right.
thing that happened on the stage.
Right.
But that was the moment every night where I could show yes, I'm a part of this Hans Zimmer world, but this is the reason why I am a part of it.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
And it was unbelievable to be in the O2 Arena in London or Wembley.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. Russia, St. Petersburg. I don't know how many humongous stadiums we performed, and the dead silence, and all you heard was the bass. And there's 30,000-40,000 eyes on you.
Yeah, that's a lot of responsibility.
And that was the moment. That was the moment where the only thing I can do is talk.
Mm.
I can't play there.
Right.
I have to
Right.
tell the story.
Right. Right. Right.
And without the teachings, without this amazing roots that I've been blessed with, and my faith, I would not have been able to do it without it. Because in that moment, there is no me.
Right.
In that moment, I have to deliver a message to all these people that took the time to even go there.
Mm. Mm.
And they're not there. The people are not there to see what they see every day. They get enough of that, of the mundane existence.
Right. Right.
They're there to receive. And I pray or hope that more artists appreciate that and take that more responsibly.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Most definitely. Wow, that's a very, very powerful statement. It does remind me very quickly to I do a lot of work in musical theater, right? Um,
Wonderful.
yeah, and in it does remind. I'm very protective of the stage as an entity, as a
Yes.
physical entity, and of sort of uh, the the significance of a stage, right? I always compare theater to. I'm not the most religious person. Spiritually minded, but not religious. But I do compare it to church because it's the only place where people supposedly are going to shut up and listen and receive. You know, so it makes a lot of sense to me what you just said. And also the willingness to give up the self and as you put it, talk, as opposed to playing. We can all play, and as important as that is, but at some point we also need to talk, and share our stories. So that kind of brings me to the conclusion of this. Snow Owl, I want to thank you so much for making yourself available today and sharing your incredible stories, your incredible paths with me, with the audience. It means the world to me, and I think it's really something that needs to be highlighted. And perhaps there are some people in the audience out there who hear this and who can, you know, put the strings together of their own life, and see like, oh, wait a second, this
Yes.
actually resonates with me, because I got this stuff in my background, or I got that stuff in my
Yeah.
background. It doesn't have to be Native American, it doesn't have to be African American as or Austrian as in my case. Whatever connects you with what you and who you are is what's important. Nevertheless, I think as a representation of Native American culture and aesthetic, and influencing contemporary aesthetic, you're doing an awesome job, and I want to commend you for that. I'm so thrilled that you made yourself available today. I really cannot thank you enough. So thank you so much. Stay safe out there. I know that Austria is
Yes.
in lockdown.
Yeah.
Stay sane out there. And I don't know. I just got a I just got a package from Austria, so there's some wine in there. So I'm I'm gonna
Enjoy.
yeah, I'm gonna enjoy that. I'll
Yeah,
enjoy some Styrian wine. I know there's some good stuff out there. So
very good, very good. No, but
awesome.
George, thank you also as well. Thank you so much. I believe in what you are doing, and I
Thank you.
remember when I first received, because somebody had told me about you, but you had mentioned me,
Hmm. Hmm.
which was great, and that was very, very touching. And it's the only way that we as musicians, we have to celebrate each other's works, accomplishments, and also support each other in the hard times. And
Oh
this
yeah.
is one of the hardest times we've ever faced. So for anybody who is out there listening, support those artists, because they can't wait to give a soundtrack to your life.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Well, on that note, Snow Owl, thanks again, and stay safe out there.
Thank you. All the best.
All right.